Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us today at RG Podcast. This is Isaiah Diesel, joined as my partner in crime as always, Earl Gray. Earl, how are you doing tonight?
All good, mate. All good. Thank you, mate.
You're yesterday. You're in the past, right?
We're in the future.
I'm in the future, right? So we have someone who's a little bit more in the past than you, Holly. She's joining us today. And Holly, would you mind telling us where you're calling out of?
I am calling you from Borden, Ontario, in Canada. So for me, it is almost noon.
All right.
So I'm still working on coffee, not beer yet.
Yeah, I'm actually having a little beer here just to kind of mellow down because I get a little bit stressed out sometimes, especially when we have some topics that are coming up like this, maybe a little bit controversial. Not really sure I'm gonna rub someone the wrong way, or it gets me a little bit nervous. So usually having like one or two helps calm down the nerves a little bit. But Adam, you getting a little bit more comfortable in the driver's seat, or how has this process been for you for podcasting?
Oh, it's been great. It's it's not something that I would ever thought that I would do.
Right.
But obviously, we got chatting online, and it's great fun. I enjoy it, and obviously you get to speak to people from all walks of life. So
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So, Holly, before we get started, we always like to start off with a friendly fire round because we like to get the conversation moving along. And
Okay.
sometimes, yeah, because sometimes whenever you, as I said, when we're having these conversations, it can get a little bit contentious. So we like to start off with something that's not threatening. So, are you ready for the friendly fire round?
Sure.
Okay, this is one of my favorite ones. But all right, so if you had to own any giant feline being, what giant cat would it be?
Oh, probably Black Panther.
Oh, yeah, that's actually mine. All right, Gray, over to you.
So you're allowed to go to the pub with somebody for an hour. It could be anybody alive or dead. Who are you going to spend this hour with?
Lorraine Mckennitt.
And who's that?
Oh my, have I got some things to send you. She is an amazing musician, artist, performer. She is from Morden, Manitoba. So she's a farm chick. She is a self-taught violinist. I've been fortunate enough to see her perform. I got to meet her and was all ready for a conversation with her, and I don't know what the issue was, but for the life of me, I could not string 3 words together to make any sense. I might as well have been a 12-year-old at a Justin Bieber concert.
Right.
So maybe in a pub over a few beer might be a different conversation.
Right. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Next one. What is your favorite sandwich?
This is going to sound weird, but bologna, which is gross on its own.
God.
I know. Okay. Bologna, cheese,
nerdy.
lettuce, mayonnaise on whole wheat bread with peanut butter.
Oh, wow. It's just took a weird turn.
It sounds horrible, but I used to do a lot of cycling, and these sandwiches will provide you every single amino acid, every protein that you need for your whole day. And it actually tastes a lot better than it sounds.
I'm about to take your word on that one.
Sorry, I'm struggling to get past this one. What's bologna? I mean, I've heard of bologna, but I don't know what it is.
You're serious?
No, if you don't know what it is,
he's from the UK.
If you don't know what it is, you are all the better for not knowing what it is. Yeah.
Imagine just like a hot dog, which is just all the spare parts and then just flattening it out to like meat.
Flat hot dog.
I would call it like a spam, because spam means some parts are meat.
No, spam's even worse.
Some parts are meat. So that's just
spam's great, man. Love it. Deep fried. It's beautiful.
Listen to this. Spam is actually a delicacy in South Korea. They actually give it out as gifts here. But okay. That being said, we do want to start off first and ask you, what is your religious affiliation? Or let's say this, on a scale from 1 to 7, 1 meaning you positively believe in God, and a 7 meaning you positively do not believe in a God, where would you fall in that spectrum?
Maybe a 5. Maybe a 5, 4 or 5.
That would be closer to not believing in God?
No, if 1 is I absolutely do not
No,
believe.
1 is you believe in God.
7, I totally do.
1 is you believe in God.
About a 4 or 5. There has to be something, right? Otherwise, why would everybody talk about it?
Right. All right. You have to ask Gray on that one. So, okay. So if we were to put you in a category, what would that category be?
As far as my religious beliefs, more than likely animist.
Animist. And for the audience, would you mind explaining exactly what that is?
An animist essentially is a belief that everything around me has an energy, has a spirit, is its own entity. Okay, there's not necessarily one all-powerful, I'm head honcho sort of thing. It kind of comes from, despite the fact that I'm definitely Caucasian, apparently Norwegian background, but I don't know any. I have a lot of experience in indigenous groups and indigenous circles. And when I started being around them and learning from them, because my thinking meshes very, very well with theirs, and it just, I've never had an experience with a religious belief or a spiritual belief that hit home so completely, right? There is a reference to creator, right? But that's still kind of ambiguous. But I mean, the moon, she has an energy, she has a spirit, she has qualities, the sun, the earth, every single thing. And I'm finally like, yes, I'm home. So that's sort of where I fit in, I guess.
All right. And Gray, you can get in here. You can either explain yourself or ask the first question.
I want to jump straight to it and ask you what you practice, what rituals you practice personally, and tell us a little more about your beliefs and that side of things.
As far as rituals, I have been I guess, pagan for 35 years. But as far as rituals, when I was first involved, and everything's new and exciting, I was going to every single ritual for every single reason. And then it's like, oh, I don't even have time to sit down. So, kind of whittled those down. And with the indigenous practices that I learned, I got more into and still hold to full moon rituals. Where I live now, I have found a wonderful pagan community, which surprised me to no end. And they also do full moon rituals. So those are once a month. They are different each month because each person in that group, I mean, we don't all believe the same thing. We don't all follow the same path. So it's almost like every month somebody else gets to host. I've already had my turn. It was wonderful. But there is the full moon rituals. There's the main Sabbats or holidays, Samhain, which just passed, or Halloween. That's sort of like my New Year. Next coming up would be Yule, okay, or Christmas. That should be a fairly big one. I don't know, because again, this is my first year in Ontario, so it's totally new for me, but definitely excited. But as far as my own rituals, generally every morning I actually have an altar set up in our main floor hallway, and generally every morning I go, because it's right at the bottom of the stairs, so it's super easy. But I just light an incense for myself and my family, to help with any difficulties each of us may be having, for my community, my neighbors, and for anybody who needs it. And I just put it out there to do whatever it needs to do for whoever needs it.
And how many kids do you have?
Myself, I have four, all grown, one son, three daughters. I have three grandbabies and two step.
Okay, congratulations on that one. I just have the one, and Gray actually just had a little Sheila, which is Sheila is UK for a woman, I guess. I don't know, they use all kinds of weird words over there, but actually I do want to briefly share. This is my public service announcement about not using drugs, because in Thailand, you've maybe have heard of the full moon parties that they have there.
No.
Okay, so, well, there's actually, and I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Koh Phangan. And this beach, every full moon, like tens of thousands of people go into there, but literally they'll use it as an excuse to, like, oh, the sun came out today, oh, the moon came out today, let's go have a rave or whatever. And so it's really, yeah, they have these raves. And I had actually, this is level of depravity there. You could actually get a magical mushroom omelet, like literally. So my mom had actually just died, and I went to Thailand to do as many drugs as like humanly possible. And this is way before I was a Christian. And so when I went there, I had taken one of these omelets, and on this full moon party, which they do dances and celebrations there. But it was crazy because I could see, like, wow, this is so crazy. I could see like the ripples like on the water and the sand, and I could see like all kinds of patterns in there. It was something like I can very well imagine like being like a savant or like autistic, or what's this? It's called synthesis something, where people can like see the sounds.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When your senses are confused.
Yeah. It's Kanye West says. Great.
Yeah.
Do you know what the word of that is? It's synthesis something. Anyway, so
And
that
the
was.
funny thing is, one of my stepsons and I literally were talking about this exact thing just yesterday, and for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the word.
It's called like synthonesia or something like. Anyway, I'll look it up right now, because apparently Kanye West has it, or at least he claims that he does. But anyway, have you ever, or do you ever, like, I've heard of like the DMT. It's a similar thing. You could have like a really spiritual experience while on DMT. Have you ever done that, or do you ever incorporate any drugs into whatever your rituals?
Not typically, no. I have an interest in ayahuasca, but I have yet to have the opportunity. The experiences that I've had, and like spiritual experiences, or bizarre experiences, have all been dead sober. Dead sober. I mean, one of the biggest ones for me was when I was only 14. So, not on drugs at 14. I've never done DMT or anything like that. So
synesthesia is what it's called. But
yes.
So real quick, I do want to ask you: Did you have an earlier religious deconversion from? I believe you mentioned Christianity earlier. Did you experience some kind of traumatic event with that that caused you to want to leave?
Well, it's traumatic is kind of putting it mildly. 17 years old. I'm not going to get into the name of it or what have you, because that's their own belief, and that's that's their own. But I was kind of talked into going to this church with someone who had drastically changed themselves. Like no more jewelry, no TV, no music, no nothing. So I went essentially out of curiosity, like what's happening to this person. And after a 4-hour horrifying sermon where I witnessed a small child who was not allowed to get up off the pew to go to the bathroom. He wet his pants and was beaten with a ping pong paddle because he wet his pants.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's I almost don't want to say anymore. But the end result had me physically run from the building. Okay. I'm not scared of much. That terrified me. And
yeah, that's literally traumatic.
Yep. That was when I was 17. And my daughter, okay, who I had mentioned before, when she was 6, okay, when she was 6, I was 25, 20.
Did we lose her?
I think so.
All right. Well, if she's not here, then we got to get into this.
We've lost you. Here she is.
Yeah, you got to restart all over. Whenever you were 20, 25,
okay.
We lost you.
No, well, I was just pointing out that it traumatized me so much that from the time I was 17 years old till probably 25, 26 years old, there's no way I was setting foot in a church. I wanted no part of any of that kind of crazy. None.
Okay. Gray?
As an engineer, and energy to me means transfer of something from one material to another. It cannot be produced. It cannot be destroyed. It just travels through the universe. What does energy mean to you?
That's actually an interesting question. I don't really know how to answer that. It's just what makes up everything. This is a collection of energy.
So like a physical thing, right?
It's it's what makes up every single thing. And that's used to be how I would phrase me. I am a billion little tiny pieces of a billion little tiny pieces of a billion little tiny pieces of a billion little tiny pieces.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I'm totally with you, though. I agree. Perfect answer.
So okay. So, all right. I don't. Okay. So I want to phrase this correctly because this has the potential to sound a little condescending. So I just want to make sure it's not. Okay. So okay.
I'm also fluent in sarcasm, so we're good.
Okay, good. All right. I think the Brits invented it. If they didn't invent it, they definitely perfected it. So, okay. So
no comment.
so this belief that, okay, how do I really phrase it? I know how to express it. I know what this means in my mind, but trying to find the words to say this is a little difficult.
Just say it.
Okay, so if what you're trying to say, or what you've said, is that basically everything would be just like a part of God, like God is somehow, or God or whatever it is out there. There's something. You would agree that there's some kind of higher power out there, correct?
I've had too many experiences to say definitively that there is not.
Yeah, so I'm in the same category, but if that is the case, and God is just kind of like something like of a Hinduistic interpretation where God is kind of like he's everything. He's the good and the bad. He's the light and the dark. He's just everything is different manifestations of God in that sense. Would you say that that is something along the lines of what you believe in?
Yes.
So then would you ever be able to like pray to this deity or interact with this deity in some way? Or is that just too abstract?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of that is what I do. Some friends of mine, actually, I'll use this as an example. A couple that I know are going through some pretty tough things right now. So not necessarily directing my requests or prayers or what have you. And I've actually had, Wiccans and pagans kind of look at me sideways when I say prayers, but it's the same thing. A prayer, a recipe, a spell, a formula, it's all the same thing, just spelled differently. Ha ha. I like wordplay. Like the grin there. But just putting it out there, right? Asking for help for them, asking for clarity for them and safety and comfort. It could be to creator. It could be to a specific deity. I don't actually work with many specific deities, but I have adored and been kind of fascinated with Kuan Yin for a number of years, because she's all about compassion and helping people and using their tears to, fertilize or help something grow, something positive. Yeah.
So
I'm not sure that answered your question or not.
Well, okay. So then let me get right into this. Can you, in 1 minute, describe how you and I met via the other video from the guy from the UK?
Well, I received a link to that video from a concerned friend. And I had never heard of your podcast, but incidentally, since then, I have watched a number of videos and really enjoy them because now I have a better understanding of what's going on. But it just, as someone who is also a mentor to a number of people, the content that this person was putting out was just, to me, it was very scary. It was very scary. And I kind of couldn't help myself. Put a few comments in, polite.
Yeah.
Okay? I was polite. And it just sort of exploded from there. And I believe you contacted me from there.
So, okay. So this guy, meeting him online, he told me that he was a witch, and contacting him, having this conversation with him, which we're going to put the link in the description because it was really interesting. But it seems like some of the stuff he just genuinely he was just getting his feet into it. So he was learning, and I can appreciate that. People are, because as a Christian, there's many things I don't know. So I'll be very honest in things I don't know, the things I can answer. Like with Gray, I don't BS answers, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, sure.
I'll be honest. I'll take the conversation as far as I can take it. So that's why I could appreciate him. And so if someone doesn't really know what they're talking about, I don't want to press him to like try to fold him or trying to, that's just not my style. That's not what I'm interested in. But
yeah, exactly.
So when people are having this conversation with me, I genuinely appreciate that they're willing to sit down and talk about whatever it is that they might believe in, even if I might personally find it like not to be true, So that's why when people were like hating on him, I'm like, well, this guy he's trying to find some stuff out, and he's on his path, and some of the stuff he thought was a little out there, but okay, that's fine. I'm probably sure people would hear what I've experienced and say that's a little bit out there, but that's fine. But so I do want to ask you another question. So real quick, you believe in like spirits?
I
Correct.
have to.
Right.
I've seen too many to not.
Right.
So
So do you believe, because this is a question I was asking him, and I thought his response is really interesting, but you believe that there are some benevolent and also evil spirits as well?
I mean, it would make sense,
Right.
because without something positive,
Mhm.
how would you know about something bad?
Mhm.
And vice versa. You need both to
Mhm.
be able to determine which is which.
Mm-hmm.
So you think obviously there's some kind of God, then that must mean that there is some kind of devil. Would you agree with that?
Well, and again, with something negative, you have to have something positive to balance it out. And I'm thinking that that's something that's very subjective, right? And I guess individual, right? I know that Satan, as such, is a Christian concept, for lack of another term. But it would just make sense to me. I mean, if you have up, or actually, reword this a little better, you can't have up unless you have down, because what's the difference?
So do you ever have any have you ever received any sort of bad treatment for what you believe and what you practice from other people? Sort of, it's had bad press, isn't it? This kind of thing. So has that affected your life, would you say?
Not adversely, no. I've had a couple of experiences that kind of raised my eyebrows. Aside from everything else that I do, I also make soaps, teas, incense, medicines, and things out of usually things that I grow or collect wild. And I do a lot of farmers markets. And one market that I was at, a couple had bought probably one of every single kind of my soaps, a bunch of teas, all this kind of thing. They're working their way down my table. And then they see that I have a deck of tarot cards there. And my date book says a witch's date book. Oh my, you would have thought that I set the world on fire. They changed that fast from conversational, fun, and funny to, oh my God, you're the devil, you're going to die, you're going to kill. And I just sat there like, they left very quickly. They did take the soaps and teas and things that they bought. But I just kind of sat
That's all
there.
that matters. Going, that's actually all that matters on that story.
Right?
So,
but mostly for me, because I do tend to be one of those people that's almost annoyingly easygoing, right? It doesn't bother me. It's not my issue, right? It's theirs, and they only know what they know.
Right.
So
actually, so right after I did become a Christian, I was still kind of going through this rebirth, regeneration stage. So I did actually wind up going to this hippie commune and smoking.
That's where most people I know say I should be, but
yeah, it was interesting. But they did give me a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And the thing about that book is one of the agreements is that you don't take things personally, because whatever someone else is saying about you or towards you, it's a reflection of whatever's going on inside of them. So it's not a reflection so much on you as it is them. So like a bully, for example, when you really get to understand the psychology of a bully, you'll understand these people are fractured people at their core.
They are broken.
And so whenever you understand that, you can look at them in a bit of a different way. Even with Trump, I mean, someone who I disagree with 99.9% of virtually everything. If I take a step back and take a step back from the Islamophobia or transphobia or whatever is going on there, and I would just have to say, if a person who is internally whole and healthy does not go out and try to attack people, exactly. Because you know that you actually know that the more you harm others, you're actually harming yourself in the process.
Mhm.
So, like one of my favorite quotes is that if you truly loved yourself, you could never hurt someone else because you would know that that hurts you yourself in the long run.
And it goes back to, what is it? Love thy neighbor, or treat
Mhm.
others how you like to be treated. That is such a base
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like, to me, that should just be automatic. Don't
Right.
treat people like crap. They won't treat you like crap.
We like to send the questions in advance so that people know that we're not trying to entrap them, because I've been in discussions where people are trying to lead me in a certain direction because they're trying to trap me there. That's not what we don't do gotcha questions or anything like that. So we like to give these ahead of a time. But I was wondering if you could tell me what your thoughts on the meaning of life is.
Well, and again, that's something incredibly subjective.
Mhm.
But as far as myself,
Mhm.
You should have some sort of purpose,
Mhm.
whether it's for your own self or your family or your community. You need to have
Purpose.
some sort of purpose.
Mhm.
One of my favorite quotes ever, okay, it's from Albert Einstein, and it kind of fits in here. He says, "At the end of my life, I want it to have been something I was proud to be a part of." Okay, so for me, being a good person, right? Like really a good person, learning everything that I can about whatever it is that interests me, and sharing that, which is why I mentor, putting it more up, keeping that knowledge going, sharing it, instead of hoarding it and keeping it secret. What's the point, right? So and there's also, have you ever heard of a movie called The Big Fish?
You talking about Big Fish by
The Big Fish, the man who's dying. Oh, who the heck's in it now?
wait, you talking about
It's
Tim Burton?
I
Ewan McGregor?
I believe so. This old man, he's dying. He's spent like his son's whole entire life telling him all these outlandish stories.
It's called, just for the record, it's called Big Fish. And the only reason, because Tim Burton's like one of my favorite directors, and that movie, when it came out, I could not sleep the entire night through. I had to wait till 8 o'clock in the morning. So I was so excited to see it because, yeah. But I'm so sorry to I normally wouldn't correct people, but I just, because you said that, I wasn't sure if that was the same.
Yep, no, it is. But that same sort of mindset, okay, having this extraordinary experience, right? And I don't care what it is. If you want to experience going to university for like 30 years and doing whatever, or going to a hippie commune, or up to you. But experience the hell out of it. Because that's what you should do. And then teach what you learned, what you found exciting. Share those things to keep that energy going, right? Keep those little pieces moving.
So have you ever seen the Terminator series?
So long ago.
Yeah. Well, actually, they just released one like 2 years ago, the latest one. But the third one is called Rise of the Machines with Schwarzenegger. And in this one, actually, Arnold Schwarzenegger gets sent back again, go figure. And he's there to help the grown-up version of Edward Furlong's character, which is John Connor. And so he's explaining why he's there to his girlfriend, I guess, or future wife. And she's like, after he explains it to her, she's like, you really don't really have any reason to help us because we're going to be destroying these Terminators in the future, whatever. And so she's like, why do you care? Like, you should actually be fighting against us, And he explains to her that he has been given a mission. His program in his mind is to go back and help them do this. Okay. So he says, if I were not to fulfill that mission, he says, my life would be meaningless. It would be purposeless. Like, there would be nothing for me to do. I basically would just rot away. And I thought the overall implications of that about humanity, which is one of the reasons, God bless Gray's heart, but one of the reasons why I find atheism to be such a, honestly, an all-out assault in many ways on human life and dignity, because it's like, where do you get this, like to tell people that there's no ultimate thing that we're supposed to be doing out there? And it just seems like that could, now a lot of people can emerge from that, like a Sartre or a Camus, and say we're going to make this meaning, but I just think for your average person that could be something very devastating to tell them. So I don't, like, if you believe in tarot cards or whatever, you mentioned that, or astrology or whatever, I personally do not believe any of that stuff is real. But if that is something that is helping you, I would never come along and try to like uproot that idea from you, because if it's helping you in your personal life and it's something that you're drawing some kind of meaning from, I wouldn't want to be the person to, now I might tell you to go look into some astronomy and research out of maybe a little bit more. I might push you in that direction, but like, I'm not here to destroy people's beliefs. I will tell you about my experience, but that's just, I'm not your average.
Well, and in all honesty, that's all we can do is talk about our own relationship that way, our own experiences that way. And that was, the other thing that was kind of a complete turnoff as far as churches, because if you don't do this, say this, dress like this, behave like this, you're going to hell. Nope, thanks. No, I'm good. I've often told people that God or Allah or creator or whoever that is, whatever it is, doesn't actually have to care what you call it, as long as you listen if it does. Right? And then, like, that's where it becomes that individual experience, right? Every single one of us has that little tiny speck of absolute magic. Okay? Cell 1 meets cell 1. Boom. Now you have a human being. That's like the ultimate in magic, right? So every single one of us is miraculous. Every single one of us has at least one little piece of that magnificence. Again, doesn't have to care what you call it. It's already here. And what you do with it, what you experience with it or not, totally up to you.
And for the record, I have my earrings in. Like, whenever I was young, I wanted the earrings and the tattoos and the flashy stuff to like show off for me. But now, like, I do let my tattoos show, and it's not because I care if I'm trying to look, more appealing or whatever. For me, it's actually for other people. Like, hey, you can still have some tattoos, you can still have a beer or whatever. I have a beer on here, and still believe in God, and that doesn't define my relationship with God. But okay, Greg.
Yeah, I just want to go back onto what you're saying about the when atheists and theists debate. It's almost as if like atheists are trying to take something from the theist, and the problem with the online community is it's full of people that do just that. That's why it's such a poisonous place to be. It seems that people are online to try and take things from people, as opposed to taking something positive from them. They're essentially trying to take something, away from them and create problems for them. Which is why I found speaking to you so interesting, Diesel, because you could see where I was at, you could see the level I was on, and that's what the podcast is about. The podcast is about learning from one another, not debating or arguing. But yeah, what was it like? Did you say that you identified as a witch from the age of 17? Was it you said?
Not necessarily identified as a witch. Just I didn't fit anywhere, like not even in my own family. And for whatever reason, one of my earliest and weirdly crystal clear memories. I was in grade 4 and I'm walking home from school, and there's a hedge of bushes and it's filled with sparrows and all sorts of little birds. And one was looking at me. I don't know.
Really?
I literally can't tell you what I had for dinner 3 days ago because I can't remember, but I remember this like it was an hour ago. And I'm looking at this bird and I'm thinking, this can't be my life. This isn't my life. I don't know why. And again, I'll be 55 in February. I still don't know what the heck that's supposed to mean or why I can remember that and not what I made my family for dinner. I don't know. It was bizarre. But
so sure. It kind of this was kind of leading me on to something. Now, if I ever step the mark, tell me. What was it like when you identified as a witch? What was dating like, and how did that affect meeting your partner, having children? I mean, what was it like?
As far as when I had my children, I was still very much confused. I mean, I was 20 when my son was born. And my daughters all came along 4 years after, so I was still fairly young. Didn't even fit there, right? I don't know, and I think that might be why I eventually went to church with my daughter. I did spend a number of years trying to figure out, right? Because it was almost like a physical piece was missing, but I don't know what it is. I wasn't comfortable in churches. I wasn't comfortable in my own house. I wasn't comfortable with my family. So fast forward a few years, and I was actually in a job seated next to a woman who had these beautiful cards laid out at her station. And I kept looking at them, and she had got up to get coffee or go to the bathroom or what have you. And before I realized what I was doing, I had actually moved my chair from my station over to hers, right? And I'm looking at these cards. And when she came back, she says, "You like those?" Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, what are these?" And she looks at me and she goes, "You're Wiccan, aren't you?" I honestly had never even heard the word, didn't know what it was. She gave me a couple of books. I blew through those in about 2 days, and it was like, I'm home. I'm not crazy. Well, my wife might argue that one, but I found a place where I kind of fit. So I dove into Wicca. Quickly figured, and quickly meaning like maybe 3 years, figured this is still too small of a box. I don't belong in a box, right? And just kind of did my own thing from there. But it was a wonderfully comfortable feeling for a change to know that, first off, I'm not the only person because there's books on this. Wow. And to finally know, okay, I'm pushing, 25, 26 years old, I think at this point, to finally find even a little piece of that chunk of me that felt like it was missing my whole life. So it was a very nice feeling.
It's like coming home. Would you call
kind of, yeah. Finding home.
Finding home. Okay. Well, I mean, in a technical sense, they would be kind of like coming home if you believe that you started here and this earth is just like a sojourn that you're in, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I have similar ideas about that as well, because the idea inside of Christianity is like where we start off innocent from a baby and then you get reborn in, and so it's like I would call it like returning to the Father. I had the period of my life where I was out doing whatever I told you some of this stuff in Thailand. That was
Yeah.
the wildest 2 months of my life. But eventually, so yeah, I would call it coming back home. my story very much is like the prodigal son, where the son goes out, he experiences all of these bad things, does all of these bad things with prostitutes and while living, and then he winds up coming back to his father's house. And but actually, the main the moral of that story is actually the excuse me, is actually the reaction of his brother, because when he returns back, the brother is like really pissed off at him, and he's like, Dad, like, why are you welcoming him back? He blew all this money, he did all this and all that. And so that story is actually really aimed at his brother. And so for me, after going down that route, I know I have about this much room to criticize. I mean, it's a little screw here. I have about this much room to criticize anyone. So you've made, and we've talked briefly about this, about your sexual orientation. I'm not going to sit here and like judge and point your finger, because if I were to do that, I have so much stuff coming back at me that would condemn me just like that. So it's like we're both on the same journey. We're going through this life, and I just want to be as I am right now, just trying to be a light, just trying to express what I've experienced, and I don't want to turn you away from that light, So there's Westboro Baptist, those types. That's not what I'm trying to do, because I think that would just turn you even more off. Correct?
Usually, it's like when you walk into a room filled with kids with a shoebox with a lid. You put the shoebox with the lid on the table and you say, Kate, I'll be right back. Don't touch that box. You won't get out of the room, and they will be in the box. Guaranteed.
I don't know. My daughter's only 3 right now, so I
hun.
Adam, I don't know. Adam, your daughter like that? You tell you, oh, don't touch that box. You'll touch it.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You. The thing is, when she was about 1.5, I got to a stage where I would get really annoyed with her, and afterwards I'd think, hang on, you're annoyed that you have actually put your daughter in an area that she can touch things you don't want her to touch. So in effect, you should be annoyed at yourself, right? And it's a really weird sort of realization as a parent, where you go, in order to protect your children, you actually follow the rules yourself. It's not about the children. Yeah, for sure.
And actually,
and around and around and around you go. Yep.
I remember the first time my daughter fell off the bed, she got like a knot on her head. She hit her head on the wood thing, and I just about wanted to kill myself. I was like, I am officially the worst father in the world. And I told my friend's mom, and he's like, oh, babies fall all the time. Like, they'll be all right. The swelling went down in like a couple of hours, and like everyone's baby falls off the bed. Like, but yeah, it happened a couple other times, but like I definitely became a lot more cautious about that, And so but new parents, I advise them, I'm like, hey, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Just minimize it, obviously. But as they say, I love this thought when they say parenting doesn't come with the manual book. It's just like in life, it's just trial and error and learning and learning. Mistakes are the best way to learn. And getting back on this, though, I do want to ask you a question. Do you believe that there's life after death? And then after you answer that, do you believe in like alternate realities, such as maybe like other dimensions, or other realities? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, with the sheer volume of encounters that I have had, there has to be something after this. I don't know what. I haven't died yet, so I don't know for sure. I'm, aside from being fluent in sarcasm, I'm also fluent in being a smart ass. So sorry if that's not allowed.
That's great.
But as far as I'm sorry, what was the second part? Oh, different realities. Okay. I think that I've had encounters where it feels like just on the other side of this wall, right? In my dining room here, just on the other side of this wall, there's different walls, right? Might not be the same plane, might just be, you know, a different time. I guess, yes, I do believe that there's alternates or different, you know, because every time that you come to a point where there's a decision, okay, if I make this choice, this happens. If I make this choice, this happens. But if I make this choice, does this one completely disappear? I don't know.
Any chance you've ever seen the movie? I think it's called Sliding Doors.
No.
Sliding Doors, or let's see. There's another one called. This plays out in a couple of movies, but one of them is called Femme Fatale, with Antonio Banderas, and you can tell I'm a movie buff, and Rebecca Romaine Stamos. And then the other one is Run Lola Run, which is like a German film, but it shows like these little small things that happen, like on Sliding Doors. I think it all comes down to her like missing a bus or something, or a train, and then it winds up just going and shows what would happen. Let's just say you missed that train, like let's say you might have met someone on there that you didn't want to meet, and how that could totally change your whole life. And with Run Lola Run, it shows like three different 30-minute periods about what happens, and about how these little small chance encounters or whatever, just luck of the draw. Like when you take it, let's just assume for a second that this is the only reality, just hypothetically speaking, but so much would just come down to just random chance whenever you have like billions of people existing for or on this planet, you know, thousands, hundreds, thousands of years. The likelihood of things going down in a very smooth way and never being repeated again, or all these strange coincidences that could wind up happening, you know, it's really small when you think about how much we actually experience. I put up the screw. I mean, we're experiencing like a little hair, like that's just a little one of my white hairs. I pluck out my white hairs because they're all over the place, but we're experiencing just a small fraction sliver of reality. But to think how things could have gone down in a different way. And so for me, I have a hard time, like this is something that doesn't make complete sense inside of Christianity with me, because on one hand, I very much strongly believe in the butterfly effect, like from the Butterfly Effect, the movie starring Ashton Kutcher. But like little things could happen. So it's like it seems hard for me to understand how God could judge someone just based off of that reality, you know. Whenever one little small thing, it could even be like something irrelevant, like a needle falling, something like that, could wind up.
But that's the thing, though, is how do you know that little needle falling was irrelevant?
No, I'm saying it's not irrelevant.
Like,
maybe
how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go, right?
Right. So anyway, that does cause me some cognitive dissonance inside of my Christianity, because it's like, what one event could have happened with someone, let's take like a serial killer or something. If you could reverse engineer that person's life and put a mentor in their life at a certain time, maybe that person might be the president of the United States or something, you know. Maybe that person might invent like a zero emissions car or something like that, just with one little small thing going, and that in turn, you know, changing in time. So I have a hard time to process that as a Christian. But great.
So you don't want me part of this conversation, because the atheist will always be the party pooper, unfortunately. In you know, the fact that you know, I don't per se think there is a meaning of life. Excuse me, and that we kind of roll through life and die for like nothing. Sorry, guys. When it comes down to will, that's another boring answer from me, because I think that we behave the way we do because of our environment. So
Largely,
I
yeah.
don't. It's kind of like saying, you know, free will doesn't really exist because the decisions that we make in our lives are determined by our minerals and our environment. So, you know, that's a very dark sort of way of looking at reality and life.
Yeah,
But
no, I agree with that.
that's how that's how I. But what I would like talking about minerals and things like that, I would like to go on to discuss spells and how spells actually work. You know, obviously we've got an accumulation of materials in, you know, maybe a cauldron or a few words put together. What do spells mean to you? Because I know that obviously it means different things to different people. What's your take on that? What does actually? How does it work?
Yeah, and then the follow-up question I have to that is, do you have a broom that you don't just sweep with? Do you only
All
sweep
of
with the broom?
this would never be supported flying a broom. So unfortunately, you don't fly on brooms. I try to vacuum, but you can only fly as far as the cord goes. So that sucks too. Ha ha. There's the wordplay again.
Don't we all
As
have in
far
the drum roll?
as a spell, right? You should just be born with like a snare drum and a cymbal. Right? So many moments that you miss. But as far as a spell, essentially how I explain it most times, it's exactly the same as a recipe. Okay. If you want to make banana bread, you have to have certain ingredients to get that banana bread, right? If I want to find a job, okay, if I'm sitting on the couch, and I think I'm picking this one because everywhere on social media, I need a job, I need a spell to find a job. Tell you what, get your butt off the couch, print off some resumes, go for a walk.
That's a great
get a job, right? Right? It's so easy and it works every time. There are occasions where I have pulled out all the bells and whistles because I don't. I really don't. I have 8 wands right here, right? I point at something. I want my phone. I point my phone. There you go. It worked.
But you don't count the thumbs? The thumbs
Well, I mean, it's kind of
like the
weird
most
pointing
important
with
one.
your thumb. It's weird pointing with your thumb, right? So I'm weird enough. If I added this, I think that might be a little too much. But no, I'm just trying to say that it's people make things way bigger than they need to be. Okay. If I want a spell, for me is exactly the same as a recipe. It is a means to a desired outcome. Okay. You can go through all the steps, you know, pour your salt circles. Oh my goodness, people, do not pour salt on your frickin' carpet. Okay. You'll be vacuuming that out for months and it's worse than glitter. Don't do it. You don't have to, right? You are your own temple. You are your own entity. Like I said, you come with wands. You want something, point to it. I got it. You know, there have been occasions where I have pulled everything out because the circumstances, one in particular, things were affecting my family from another person, and it was starting to like it progressed from annoying phone calls to showing up at weird places, interfering with my family. Then it got physical, and I'm like, okay, no. Pull up the sleeves, pulled everything out, did my circle, called the quarters, did everything. Okay, carried out my spell. Essentially, actually, I can use it was a binding. Okay, which kind of it binds somebody from doing any more harm. Okay, that was in 2013.
Yeah, they can't do any harm if they're dead, right? So
well, no, I don't need to kill anybody. I just needed them to get the hell away from my family, and it worked.
It worked. So
it definitely worked.
So here's a question I have. One is, how do you account for evil? One, and then two, there is a dark side of this as well, like the either incantations or potions or whatever. And I thought it's very interesting interviewing that other guy when he talked about that there's like a light side and there's a dark side to this. So something that we were trying to heal someone, for example, that would be like considered a light side, or something we were trying to hurt someone would be considered a dark side. But he said, hey, if you're like putting a hex on like the Taliban, that's kind of like a light, because it is something with a negative intent to hurt someone, but the actual net benefit is like positive because those people are hurting other people. So I know that's a lot. So the first one was, how do you account for evil? And then second of all, is there like a dark side or evil side to hurt, like voodoo, for example?
Voodoo, I think, is definitely another thing that is absolutely misrepresented.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very closed practice. So I don't honestly think that anybody who doesn't practice it or is educated in it has room to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as evil, okay, that again, it's an individual thing. Okay. Magic is magic is magic is magic. Doesn't matter. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not light. It's not dark. It's the person who is doing
Mm-hmm.
said magic. That's the same, like with, I mean, you hear horror stories about priests and all these things,
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing with little boys and all this.
Mm-hmm.
It's not their religion that's bad or their spiritual belief that's bad. It's that person
Mm-hmm.
that, maybe needs a smack upside the head. And that's another thing where I think I'm very comfortably right on the fence with almost everything, right? I don't know for certain that there's a God. I don't know for certain there is not. I don't know for certain that, like, I don't know. So I just stay right here, do my own thing. But as far as evil, I've encountered things that are rough, but I think evil is like a Hollywood thing.
Really?
I think from a person's point, I mean, I have met ridiculous narcissists, totally disillusioned people, but I wouldn't necessarily say evil, right? And this, people usually flip out when I say this, but Hitler, okay, wait, started off with amazing ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody should go hungry. Nobody should be without a home. Nobody should be without a job. Great ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Then unfortunately, his junk came out and, well, we're here now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that didn't work out very well, but I still don't even think that he was evil. Troubled, definitely in need of, some heavy duty counseling, probably hospitalization. If that was in place, maybe these things would not have happened. But there again, you got that in the road, right? But even the things that we learned because of something that horrendous, and I mean, it should never have happened in the first place, but it did. So where do you go from there? You go up, right? Or you learn. Sort of getting off track there. Sorry.
I followed you through a lot of this stuff that you said. You've kind of starting to lose me here on this one, because to me that is one of the things I believe that does prove that there is a God. The fact that there is evil out. I mean, there is evil out there. I'm sorry, there is absolute evil, and I'm not going to tell you this person's name, but look up the maniacs out of Ukraine. Just type in Ukraine and maniacs and see what those guys did over the course of like just like a couple of days. Honestly, the most horrific thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I've heard of some pretty bad stuff. So the fact that there is some kind of force out there, and I would say I would call it devil. You don't necessarily have to use that terminology, because I know that could make some people uncomfortable. But to know that there is some, and I got the tattoos of this. I have all the, I told you I have all the religious tattoos, but that like balance, that like the yin and the yang right there. The fact that I know that because of some of the stuff, unfortunately, I've just had some curiosity that I really wish to undo the things that I've seen in my mind. Out of researching some stuff online and studying history, there is I did talk to you about, like, I do believe you could reverse engineer someone's mind, or maybe just give them some kind of treatment and solve that problem. I've mentioned that already in the first place, but the end result, the end game of what some people do out there, I'm talking about the Squid Games. I have a hard time believing that is completely just fictional, like the fact that to think that there aren't people who would play these kind of games with people's lives. That to me is not at all a far stretch of reality, to think that that's something like that is.
Yeah. Oh no, not at all. Not at all. That would be a narcissist's favorite playground.
Right.
And that's what I mean. Like with the knowledge that I have on different disorders, different mental states, different mental places. Okay. So maybe it's a little harder for me to say, okay, that's evil, period. Okay. They're disturbed. They're wrong. Oh my God, they are wrong. But evil, I don't know. I don't know. There again, I think I'm right on that fence, because why are they like this? Right? That's where my curiosity goes, is, like, I'm a big fan of psychological thrillers. I love it. Love it. Things that just mess with your brain and play with it, make you think. But I don't like, oh, well, his mom was mean, so that's why they're like this. Okay, no. Everybody has that switch in their head that says, oh, nope, this is wrong. Flick, don't do it. Right. How come that switch didn't flick for them? Okay, it's not necessarily evil, right? There's 50 I mean, look at all the conditions that everybody and their dog now has. So there's so many different degrees and ways of explaining or defining evil.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with what you just said. For me, it's a bit like speaking to somebody that I spoke to somebody recently with PTSD, and they tried to explain to me about what it was like to suffer from PTSD, and they used the switch analogy, and they said that their body is constantly in flight mode, and that switch, that natural switch that switches that off, doesn't work. And I think that evil, if we're going to call it that at the moment, I think that there's a switch in our minds. I don't think that it's evil. I think it's a psychological, and again, as I said earlier, it's an environment. It's minerals in an environment behaving a certain way, and for me, that's as far as it goes.
Well, I mean, it's nature and nurture. It has to be.
I for the life of me, wish I could believe that. I'm telling, this is not semantics. This is not. I'm just being as serious, because from the stuff that I've experienced and the stuff that I know, I really wish I could just boil it down. But the thing is, I have experienced that. I have, because you haven't said any of whatever you've experienced, knowing that there's spirits or an afterlife or whatever. I have had experiences where I have encountered that evilness. Absolutely, in my life, I'd strap myself up to lie detector tests right now and wager my life what I've experienced. So if you were to tell me that all of that was just merely a chemical reaction that I've experienced, I would there. I mean, I said if I could go back to that stage where the only thing I really cared about was like traveling and partying. I've thought about it sometimes because my life was just so much easier whenever the only thing I was worried about was the next woman I was going to sleep with, or the next country I was going to. That was the only thing I had to worry about, and so my life has changed so dramatically from that. But yeah, this conversation actually went in a totally different direction than I thought it was going to go under. And I do want to ask you on this last question, Joe. What? Yeah. So what would you want someone to know about you that might have some like really distorted ideas or false imagery of whatever it is that you practice? What would your message would you want to say to them?
Things about me or my practice that would have strange connotations?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of joked about the
Okay.
prayer or whatever, but maybe some people just think that, like, for instance, you would be like a devil worshiper or
No.
or whatever it might be.
I think, well, I mean, it's a little hard pressed for me to answer because I'm very, very open with the people that I associate with and my friends, so they all know.
Adam's the devil
most of my
worshiper, by the way.
experiences.
Adam is the devil worshiper of the group, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, to each their own, right? If, you know, that's what strokes their little boat.
That's a joke.
But as far as myself, I mean, I'm not even sure really how to answer that. I see things that people don't see. I always hear things literally 24/7. I have experienced beings right up
next to you.
against me who were not there.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, but for me, they were, I mean, the one experience that I was just referring to, I sincerely attribute to my still being here. But they were all very positive experiences for me. And again, most of the people that I know already know those, so I'm not sure what would.
I don't have any doubt. I have absolutely zero doubt. I may have a different explanation for it, but I don't have any doubt whatsoever that you've actually had those experiences.
Yep.
Oh, for sure. Oh.
Yep.
So you're right.
Great. You got any last ideas?
Yeah, last one from me. It's two parts. One's a question, one's a request. Okay. The question is third eye and wisdom. Do you believe in a third eye? Do you have a third eye? And is that solely to do with wisdom? I mean, how does that connect with wisdom? And the last part is, can you please do a spell for me and my family? Positive one, obviously.
Actually, it's funny that you asked that, because when we were talking about it before, I thought you need something. I don't know what it is, but you need something. So of course, absolutely, I would be honored. As far as third eye, I'm kind of laughing. I'm kind of big on tattoos and piercings. And I actually had, you can see there's a little scar there.
Yeah.
It's called third eye piercing. Okay. This beautiful little teeny tiny crystal just right there. I watched it come out of my head. Okay. I actually had this done twice. It won't stay in. And the woman who was doing it for me said, I'll do it a third time if you want, but I don't think this is going to work because your third eye is never closed. I'm so open, right? It's never closed. So I figured I don't need to get punched in the forehead again. I'll just leave it. So I left it alone. But no, there is definitely a third eye concept. For me, it's not necessarily wisdom. It's for me, it's sort of the same as my gut, my instinct. It's never wrong, right? It wants what it wants, it knows what it knows, and it does not give two shits about anything else. and it's never wrong. You know, so it's the same sort of thing for me, if that makes sense. You know, because
Sure. And
sorry, go ahead.
you off.
No, I was just going to say,
Okay.
most of the time when I hear about third eye, it's more about opening yourself, not necessarily wisdom. It's being open, it's being receptive, and available for new things.
Gray is actually from England, so I think they invented witches.
That was awesome.
I think they invented witches in England. Certainly Harry Potter, they came out with Harry Potter, but I think the Druids, I think they all originated from, we can blame the UK for that. So yeah, so you know, I want to move to last thoughts right now. I think after interviewing you and the other guy, initially I thought, when I first interviewed him, I thought I was going to try to like maybe push the boundaries a little bit, and I really want to do the same thing with you, but maybe you're masking everything very well. But from what I've seen from both of you guys, it doesn't seem like there's like ill intent behind that, or whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe there is, but
I'm too old to
maybe
care about stuff like that anymore. I
that?
just don't. I'm too old to be bothered with stuff like that anymore.
And
There's
so,
no point.
right, so yeah, it's interesting conversation. I really appreciate it. I see that you're doing some, as long as you're not trying to do what you're trying to do to hurt people, like I really, my beef doesn't, because even just assume that I didn't believe anything that you said. The act, the intention of whatever it is that you're doing in the universe, putting out that energy into the universe, that affects the universe. Even if it's just in your mind, that energy is going to manifest itself in some way or another. Okay, so you don't have to believe in other dimensions or demons or angels or anything like that. It's just that intent is out there in the universe. And so there's been lots of studies on this, about different experiments they've done to actually prove that that's totally true. But I think just not having that in your mind, just negativity or desire to hurt people in the first place, I think is just a really good thing. So
it's been a real pleasure to meet you, and you just go to show that, you know, this field is huge. There's lots of different types of witches, and you know, I can feel the warmth from your soul, so I know the kind of witch that you are. So thanks for joining us. It's been really insightful. Yeah, great.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
And with that being said, I want to thank you for joining us today at RET Podcast. We always make some small donations to some kind of organizations that we're working with. And so we are supporting, as I told you at the beginning, anti-bullying for the LGBT plus community. So we will be making a small donation there, because again, I may be 100% against that myself, but there's just no room for bullying on this planet. We could agree to disagree, and I could tell you very lovingly that, you know, this doesn't align with my thoughts are about the best way to be in the universe. But ultimately, that's irrelevant. What I believe, like, it's your life. My decisions aren't going to affect your life. Your decisions affect your life, and so you're living with the consequences and you know, with your decisions. So I can respect and love you all along the way, wherever you are on this journey. So, and that's what we're just trying to do here in this podcast. And so be sure to check us out at www.retpodcast.com. Check us out at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, just about everywhere you can find someone, you know, YouTube. Check us out. And this is what we're continually doing, because we're trying to work towards a more empathetic, more compassionate world. And we look forward to seeing you back on our next episode. Bye.